Today, on an episode of what not to do with your truck, well, it's not working. So, the reason it's not working, we pulled it out, but it's actually was a running engine. So, had a blown head gasket, and we're upgrading it to a D&J Performance Series engine. In the process of the build, we're adding a forced induction 476 on it. So we're really going to be pushing the limits of the 68 RV, and probably going to try to ask more of it than what it's going to be able to take. But we'll see what we can figure out. So we're going to get this D&J Performance Series engine installed, and we're going to send them on the way.
This is Robert Johnson's 2006. It's an automatic, has a redline diesel stage 2 or 3 transmission in it, has S480 over a stock appearing 63-67 turbo, has industrial injection, 400 horsepower injectors, and a single 14 mil CP3. He was here last December, made 996 or 97 horsepower. He really wanted 1,000 horsepower, didn't quite get there. So we put bigger injectors in it, and is back today to try to break that 1,000 horsepower. So I'll flash a tune in it and go from there. Alright, we got Robert's truck all wrapped up. We made 1,134 horsepower. So he got his 1,000 horsepower and a little bit more than what he was expecting. So he's happy with it, and then he also wanted a tow tune and a street tune. The tow tune we made 767 horsepower, and his street tune is at 899. So I'll get him off the dyno and send him on the way.
Alright, I'm on the starting line here at Crossroads Dragway, and I thought I would just spend a little bit of time and talk about track prep and kind of what we do before we make a pass, and just a little bit of what goes down getting a race truck down the track. So what I have holding here in my hand is a track meter, and it is what we use to measure the grip of the track. It's not necessarily everything that we go by, but it does give us a really good reference point, and especially being able to comparing from one track to the next. So that's a really good tool for us to know how much grip is on the track. Kind of what goes into track prep. Every race that we go to, Total Venue Concepts comes in and does the prep for us. Ralph Mabry there is probably one of the hardest working men in all of drag racing, and he does a tremendous job in doing track prep for us. There's a lot of hard work that goes into it, starting with before the race starts. There's often a lot of track scraping. So when there's too much rubber buildup on the track, that actually becomes a bad thing. And so they end up scraping some of that off and giving us a good surface to where, you know, it's a lot better grip for us. But an ideal track has a good layer of rubber on it, combined with glue. There's a couple of different mixtures of glue that different tracks, and depending on what tires people are using, that they'll use in the process, but it's a combination of spraying glue down and then taking either the static drag across it or the rotator. The rotator and the static drag somewhat do the same thing, but the rotator puts down more rubber than what the static drag does. So the rotator and the static drag do some of the same thing, but it depends a little bit as to what they're trying to accomplish, as to which one they use. That's a little bit above my pay grade, understanding all of that stuff as well. But when we come up for a pass, we will choose our lane if we have lane choice. Usually compare the two lanes. Oftentimes they're similar, but especially on the starting line they can vary somewhat, and we'll choose that some by grip of the track, and sometimes if there's not much of a difference, we'll go with the side of the track that our driver's more comfortable in. So lane choice can be a pretty big deal sometimes, and other times it doesn't really play a huge role in things, but that's the first thing you do, is you choose your lane, and then depending on weather conditions, the hotter it is, the harder it is for them to give us a really good track surface. So with a big slick tire, we do want some wheel speed. We actually need some spin. I could go into a whole big different story on that. But very seldom do we really make it a power adjustment at the line. Most of what we do is we collect data for the next round, and then we make adjustments according to that. So that's a little bit of what goes into it. Also, always make sure that we line him up in the groove. Sometimes if we have a little bit less traction on the track than what we like, you'll see us do a burnout through the starting line, and then we'll line him back up in that burnout mark, which gives us some more traction. So that's a little bit of the basics of what goes into reading a track and getting the truck down the track, hopefully every time.
Hey guys, so today we are working on Matt Gardenia's truck. As you know, it's been here for a good long while. We put a removable roll bar in it, bunch of dyno tuning and that kind of stuff with it. Put a CP3 on it, injectors, just a bunch of stuff trying to find the power that he wants. And but last time he was on the dyno, ended up exploding the manifold charger on a set of compounds. So we got a new manifold charger, and we actually went a little bit bigger. We went to a 728710. It's a pretty with an S4 85 on or below it, and so we're gonna put everything back together. I had a couple exhaust leaks, just gonna try to fix everything, make it all right, and we're gonna throw it back on the dyno and see what it does.
This is Kevin Stevenson's 2001 automatic truck. Has a Firepunk Comp 1 in it with a full manual valve body that we just installed. He has a 364 480 compound setup, 6x16 injectors, and a Scheid Lightning VP pump. Has Quadzilla programmer on it, and he just wants to see what kind of power we can make. So probably make a few runs and go from there. Alright, we got Kevin's truck all wrapped up. We tried a couple different tunes on the Quadzilla that he had, and we ended up having some connectivity issues. So we were only able to try the tune that it was on, and it made 591 horsepower, was the most we squeezed out of it. So he's going to get a hold of tech support, try to fix that issue, and either come back and see if we can make more, or run it at the track and see what track times are and try different tunes and see if he can't make more power. So I'll get him off the dyno and send him on the way.
What's going on here, buddy?
Getting this truck all nice and for the video.
Wow, you're actually doing something.
Yeah, for once in my life.
Oh, that's pretty good. Hey, you missed a spot.
Oh, I was waiting for you to get that.
Oh, I'm too short for that.
Hey look, my hands are dirty because Larson's slacking, and I've had to strap the trucks today. It's just unbelievable. But I have to say, I strapped trucks for 4 years. You're only a year and a half in it and you're already complaining.
No, I'm not. I'm just saying, if I would take as long to put a truck on the dyno as he does, I could for sure only do one truck a day.
You know why it took so long?
Why?
Because these lug nuts were so galled up. It took a minute and a half with a 1/2-inch impact to get it off, and then we couldn't get the socket out of the nut. It was like flaming hot. And so there's only 6 lug nuts. It's very messed up. Okay, today we've got Brad Edwards from Overbuilt Diesel. We've got his 05 on the dyno. This is a 2.5 pulling truck. It has a D&J Performance Series engine. It has 400% over injectors, 14 mil stroker pump, and a stainless 2.5 turbo. This has a 96 turbine, 125 housing, so we will see what kind of power curve we can get out of it. It has an NB 4500 with a triple disc South Bend clutch and 456 gears, so that always poses a little bit of a challenge on the dyno with the 456 gears and no rear brakes. So we have to kind of play around with the load cell of the dyno to where we can get it to load the engine properly and get an accurate dyno run. So we'll get this thing dyno tuned and see what kind of power we can make today. We got Brad Edwards' truck finished up last night. We were not able to get it dialed in the way we wanted to because we were having problems with data logging. Something in the CAN bus circuit of the truck was causing the data logs to cut out. I can have the truck shut off with the key on and it'll record data, no problem. As soon as I fire the truck up, it would record data for a second and then stop. So we were a little bit blind. I tried a couple different fuel quantities, but I couldn't tell, was I hitting my rail pressure set points? I couldn't tell, was I hitting full fuel quantity like I wanted to? So it was a little bit of guesswork. So they're going to take the truck back and they're going to figure that out and probably send me some data logs that have been actually sled pulling. Then I can kind of review that data and get it set up correctly. Obviously without the dyno, you don't really know where your peak power is, those last 15-20 horsepower. We did do 1,015 horsepower and it held a really nice power curve. It was over 1,000 horsepower from 3,600 RPM to 4,500 RPM. So I know for a 2.5 class, we might not be able to have the peak power that we wanted because I couldn't really see the data, but I do know they have a really good power curve. So when you have a 1,000 RPM window that you're over 1,000 horsepower, now you can come off the line at 4,500 and the sled can suck you all the way down to 3,600 at the end and you're still making good power. So when you have a really broad power curve, it's a lot more forgiving in your driving. If you don't get your, if you get on a tight track where you're running lower RPMs versus higher RPM and you have a flat power curve, the truck's going to run great. So hopefully they can get that ironed out and we will maybe see the thing back on the dyno later this year.